Now we're going to have a look at the envelopes, which are located, as we know, over here. Now we have an amplitude envelope, which is the first one, and then we have two freely assignable modulation envelopes. So let's start with the amplitude envelope. So what we have, as you'd expect from the envelope, is an attack, decay, sustain, and release control. So we bring up the attack. You'll hear, we'll change the contour of the sound. Just bring the filter down to make it a bit softer sounding. So notice that I can either drag on here or I can move the breakpoints within this display here. And also curve this. Now obviously the envelopes allow us to really broaden the scope of the kind of sounds that we can design using any synthesizer. So if we were limited to sounds with a kind of immediate attack and then a sustain, you know, it's quite limited in terms of what we can achieve, but using envelopes we can make more kind of bowed style sounds. So it's a very important part of any synthesizer. And that's the attack control. So the decay parameter is going to determine the amount of time it takes to reach the sustain level. Let's bring the sustain level down. You see, now we have a very kind of fast attack time going down to nothing. Now the decay comes in, allows us to create kind of sharp, percussive sounds. Like so. We could also have a sound which has fast attack, then decays down to a lower level. So that can help you give the perception of having more bass in some ways, because if the actual sustain of the note is lower, you can kind of trick the ear because the initial attack is a bit louder into thinking it's kind of louder than it is. That can be quite a good trick, I find. So it's just creating the right contour. And then we have the release control. So the release determines the amount of time it's going to take the sound to disappear once we let go of the key. Pitch this up a bit. So really nice for creating kind of paddy style sound. Okay, so that's the amplitude envelope. So that is what we're going to use to control the amplitude of the sound. Let's just reinitialize the patch. Going to go back to that basic envelope. Let's have a look at the two envelopes that we can actually assign here. Now, in order to assign them, we need to come down to our modulation matrix, which is located down here, as we know. And then we can decide where we want to route these. So let's say we wanted to route it to the filter. That's a good one. We'll put it onto the filter cutoff, assign an amount. Let's bring down the filter cutoff, and then we can get that same kind of range of sounds, but now we're applying that modulation to the filter. Now what's quite interesting, we have this little control here, which is a delay to the envelope. Let's bring up the cutoff a little bit. You can hear there. Now we've got a delay to that attack phase. Which is quite nice. As opposed to that where the attack phase starts straight away. Now apart from that, it's the same as the previous envelope, the amplitude envelope. Attack, decay, sustain, and release. And what's more, we have a third envelope here, which we could use to control other parameters. So let's try something out here. So let's move to a little bit more complexity. So let's route LFO to, let's say, oscillator 1 level. Switch it on. Okay, so now we've got the attack affecting the filter. Let's just bring down that amount so it doesn't go as high. And we've got the LFO affecting the level of oscillator 1. So let's say we wanted to use envelope 3 to affect the speed or the rate of LFO1, which is up here, LFO1 frequency. Let's bring that up. Let's bring up the attack a bit. It's actually affected negatively. So now we've got some nice kind of movement in the sound. We haven't done effects yet, but let's just add a little bit of reverb. So you can hear that with not really much going on, we can make quite an interesting sound that way. Okay, let's reinitialize here. And that is the envelope. So amplitude envelope hardwired to volume, and envelope 2 and 3 can be freely assigned within the mod matrix to affect whatever it is we want to affect. Okay, so now we've covered the envelopes. In the next video, we're going to head across and look at the global settings. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.